A leaked chat from 2021 has just surfaced, and it's shaking the foundation of his entire story. This chat, exposed by the Roy's Report and Evangelical dark web, could reveal new details surrounding Kris Williams' alleged affair. Does this leak change everything we thought we knew, or is it simply another piece of the puzzle? Today, we'll break down these messages and explore the impact they could have on the ongoing situation. Let's dive in. To understand the weight of this situation, let's start with who Kris Williams, aka Kdub, is. For those who may not be familiar with him, Kris built his platform on defending biblical truth. His channel, All Things Theology, boasts nearly 89,000 subscribers, and he's earned the trust of many for his approach to theology, often calling out false doctrines, reviewing sermons, and even mixing in a bit of Christian hip-hop. He's known for his bold stance, and his content resonated with viewers who valued sound theology. However, on May 22nd, 2025, Kris's reputation took a serious hit. Heritage Grace Community Church, based in Plano, Texas, made a public statement that Kris had been excommunicated for what they called an online adulterous relationship, while still married to his wife, Tonya. The church's decision was based on evidence, Discord chats, and phone logs that were reportedly handed over by Tonya, Kris's wife. The messages suggest that Kris was involved in a long-distance, emotionally intimate relationship with another woman. Even though there was no physical contact, the church acted on these texts, and that's where things began to spiral. But how do these messages fit into the larger picture? Let's take a closer look. In early 2025, Kris's wife, Tonya, discovered some troubling messages, Discord conversations, and phone call logs, which seemed to show that Kris was emotionally involved with another woman. While the relationship didn't involve physical infidelity, Tonya felt that the emotional bond was a breach of trust. She brought these findings to the church elders, which set the wheels in motion for what would eventually lead to Kris being placed under church discipline. Initially, Kris didn't deny his actions. He confessed, and as part of his efforts to make things right, he blocked the woman's contact information. There was a brief attempt at repentance, but Kris's actions and the woman's continued outreach made it clear that the situation was far from over. That's where things started to go sideways. Now let's talk about the leaked chat that has just surfaced of Kris Williams that could change the entire story surrounding his alleged affair. This isn't just any chat. It's the kind of evidence that could shift the perspective on the entire situation. Does this leak prove Kris's innocence, or does it reveal a deeper truth? Let's take a closer look at these chats and see what they might mean for Kris. So another Christian YouTube personality, Psycho Woods, told Julie Roys that in 2021, he exchanged texts with Williams after his wife accused him of infidelity on social media. In those texts, which Woods shared with Julie Roys, Williams admits he was being secretive about communication with females I worked with, but Williams said he was taking time away from social media to work on my marriage. Let's break down the chats. Is anything your wife said true, brother? Have you and your wife spoken to the elders at your church? Right from the start, we can see that Kris's friend is reaching out for clarity, asking if what his wife said is true, and if he has spoken to the church elders. This shows that the accusations were already being discussed, and Kris's responses are critical in understanding his side of the story. Not everything. She was upset I had numbers and were communicating with females I worked with. I apologized to her, and we are working it out. Kris admits to communicating with other women, but he downplays it, saying it was about numbers and that he's working things out with his wife. While this might not seem like a huge deal at first, it raises important questions about emotional boundaries in relationships. He's acknowledging that something went wrong, but in his defense, he emphasizes that he apologized and is working through it with Tonya. This kind of response can be seen as Kris trying to minimize the situation, but let's also recognize that he's taking steps to address the issue. At least there's some effort to repair things with his wife, even if the breach of trust is serious. I was being secretive because I know my wife would get mad. I shouldn't have done that. Here, Kris admits to being secretive. This is a big step because he's acknowledging that what he did was wrong. He even admits to intentionally hiding things because he knew it would upset his wife. While it's easy to criticize him for not being upfront, It's important to note that he's owning up to his actions in some way. While Kriss could have been more direct in addressing the issue and fully owning the emotional impact of his actions, the fact that he admits his secrecy shows a level of self-awareness. Did she see any text or communication that was inappropriate? Kriss replies, no. The next question is about whether any texts or communications were inappropriate. Kriss's response is, no, but this brings up an important point. Emotional infidelity doesn't always involve explicit messages or physical acts. It can be the sharing of deep personal thoughts and feelings, which can be just as damaging. That's good to know, bro. This line, "That's good to know, bro," may seem like a simple statement, but it's important to note how Kriss responds. It's almost as if he's relieved to avoid more serious accusations. While this could be seen as minimizing the situation, it might also be Kriss trying to navigate through a conversation he knows is delicate. Again, his actions were wrong, but he's showing some level of concern for not making things worse. Let's continue breaking this down. We've seen Kriss admit to being secretive, but there's still more to unpack. Let's look at the next part of the conversation. Hey bro, I was asleep when you called. To explain a bit, my wife made the post in anger. Instead of going on FB and trying to convince what some have already assumed, I decided to take time away from social media and work on my marriage. Thanks for asking and thank you. Here, Kriss is explaining why he took time away from social media. He says his wife made a post in anger, and instead of addressing the accusations publicly, he decided to step back. He mentions he's working on his marriage, but notice the tone. He frames it as something his wife did in anger, which shifts the responsibility away from his own actions. While Kriss is trying to focus on repairing his marriage, he's still not fully acknowledging the emotional affair as the root of the issue. This response, while understandable, could be seen as an attempt to shift focus back onto the actions of his wife. The friend responded, "Thanks for responding, bruh. Trust me, I know how these things can be, and unfortunately go. Just wanted to reach out to you, brah, because I love you, and I'm here if you need an ear, and want to vent, just want to talk." The friend is showing empathy, which is natural, but notice the way Kriss responds. He's still not fully owning up to his emotional affair. Instead, he's acknowledging the pain, but focusing more on the aftermath than on taking full accountability. So, where does this leave us? Kriss has made mistakes, but there's nuance here. He admits to being secretive, to failing in his marriage, and to the emotional affair. But he also seems to downplay the severity of his actions, focusing on the fallout instead of addressing the root cause. What's your take on this? Do you believe Kriss can redeem himself and rebuild his ministry? Or has he crossed a line that can't be undone? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have more in-depth stories coming your way.